Welcome to Marriage Now What. I got Ashleigh with us today. So Ashleigh, I was listening to this interview and it had 7 different people on there. In the interview, one was Catholic, one was atheist, one was Muslim, charismatic. I mean, they basically had all these different types of theologically people. And one of the questions was, Larry King said, why are you in this religion? And every one of them said, well, my parent was atheist, my parent was Jewish, my parent was Mormon, or whatever the 7 scopes were. And I thought that was interesting because in that moment in time, I had to consider that which one of those was right, and then am I saying which one of those is wrong, and then as a parent, what am I teaching based off what I feel is right or wrong versus what is really right or wrong for a kid? I mean, if you've got 7, and of course there's so many different religious type thoughts, but not only that, it's are you gay, not gay? Are you this? Are you that? Money? Are you rich? Are you poor? How do you live? What's your lifestyle? Are you a giver? Are you a taker? So many different beliefs are created from the parents and tried to transmit into the kids. And when I realized that, I had to take a step back and say, ooh, what am I trying to thrust on my kid to believe is right or wrong, the correct way, how to do things or stuff like that? Am I trying to set my kid up for live inside this box of beliefs that I have accepted or want or desire, and sometimes not, like how many parents drop their kids off at church, and then they go do something else and they're like, well, at least church is teaching them. Or even, the other thing that happened the other days with the teachers at school. It's like, are they telling our kids what they should do education-wise? Oh, you need to go to college. Oh, you need to do this. Oh, you need to, apply to this job. Or, what kind of conversations are we doing as parents towards our kids, and how are the kids receiving it, and how are they thinking? And have you had to change kind of the way that you parent towards your kids based off of beliefs and allowing them to create their own beliefs? Or is it very important to you to make sure that they have all of your beliefs?
Not at all. No, I honestly don't care if they have all of my beliefs. I try to teach my kids what I believe, but in the next breath I always say, but that could change in a year, because we're constantly growing and evolving in our thought process. And as we go on in life, we don't believe the same things we believed 10 years ago, or even when we were teenagers or young children. We're constantly moving forward and evolving. And so I don't care necessarily if my kids don't believe exactly what I believe. I mean, there's a couple of things that I really, really hope they do believe, such as, for me, religiously, I want them to know that God's always good and there's absolutely nothing that could separate them from Him. But outside of that, I feel like I need to present my views to them, but leave them space to figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, it's funny because, I think as an adult, we said, oh, I don't want to do what my parent did, and that's my question is are we kind of doing the same thing, just filling it with different beliefs? So I don't want to do what my parent did, drug me to church all the time, made me do this, and made me not do that, or not good or bad, whichever religion or thing that they're doing, but just that concept of demanding, and then here we in return demand the kids to accept our beliefs. I think sometimes it's also hard as parents or people is to accept other people's beliefs or have our kids accept other beliefs. So if you're a Republican parent and your kid says, hey, I want to be a Democrat, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you want to be a Democrat. Why in the world would you want to be a Democrat? Oh, la, 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 la. And I've seen so much division happen in families because One's a Democrat, and like they won't even talk about it now because they've had so many fights or arguments. Or you have a kid who's gay, and so then, our beliefs aren't that you can be gay, so you have to change. You can't be gay, and I've seen so much division happen because of beliefs. And then is it that we present our beliefs or demand our beliefs on the kids so that we don't have to fight?
Because we don't want to have to face their free will.
Right. Because then if I have to face my kids' free will, it puts the demand on me to accept. I saw a great quote the other day, and it said something along the lines where there is no diversity. How did the quote go? I forget exactly how the quote goes. But basically it was along the lines of everybody can be lovable and acceptable and great and valuable. The only thing that keeps our view of that happening for the whole world is our inability to accept and value other people's beliefs, thoughts, color, race, creed. So the dividing factor between a Republican and a Democrat in a family is the inability to be able to accept that person's valuable even though they think opposite of my beliefs. Mm-hmm. And so as a parent, I got to sit there and consider, am I creating a divide between me and my kids potentially if they take the other side of a belief? And what would that look like?
One thing for me that I've had to face, I've talked to you about this before, not on Marriage Now What, but on another podcast about a deconstructing in my beliefs. And one thing that I've had to face is everything that I've taken on that's been passed down to me from family members, church leaders, friends, is it all for a form of brainwashing? And that's a hard thing to look in your face is, okay, what's up with these beliefs that I have? Why do I have them? Are they edifying? Are they beneficial? Are they loving? Are they full of grace? And then what do I do with them after that? And that's something that I think we have to be aware of with our kids too. Are we saying this is the way that it is, which ultimately is a form of brainwashing if it's not truth to them. If they don't have that experience of, oh, I see truth in this situation because I've been in the middle of it and experienced it. That's for me one of the most confrontational breakdown in belief systems that I have had personally.
Well, let's just talk about before the show, we were talking about the meme that you sent to my wife about mother, what is it exactly?
Housework doesn't equal motherhood.
Housework doesn't equal motherhood. So, and it was funny because you're like, so being a mother is caring and nurturing and teaching and loving the kids and all that. And I says, yeah, 100% housework is not equal to mothering. I said, what is housework is equal to being a wife and a helpmeet to your husband. Where did that belief come from? And then here's the thing is where did that belief come from for you? And then here's the thing, what effect that happened on you? Did you make your whole life so that you'll do the housework so that your husband will love you? And are you training your daughter to do the housework so her husband will love her?
Or because that's what she's supposed to do.
Right.
You can take love out of it. It's what you're supposed to do. Like culturally, that's what we've been taught. You're a woman, you're a female, you learn how to take care of all the housework, you learn how to cook. Like I even heard someone say the other day, we had a family member come over and she goes, oh, I didn't know you girls knew how to cook, talking to me and my sister. And my sister goes, you don't get a husband unless you know how to cook. Mm. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? But that's just here in the South, that is a belief. And I know that she was just joking, but when she said it, I was like, man, but people really believe that. Not that you won't get a husband, but that is a requirement to get a husband. And I was in the nail salon the other day and listening to this mom and this daughter get their nails done. And the mom's like, oh no, we do GoWaiter.com all the time, because she just doesn't cook. And it was just so refreshing, because it goes against the way that I was raised and the way that I was taught I had to be before getting married. Was I had to be all of this stuff. I had to do all this stuff. I had to know how to manage it and to keep it going, on top of having a job, because we didn't have kids. And it's just not, I mean, just like you said, where does it come from, you know?
Well, and then are we living the life of this imaginary reason to have this belief? Like, you know, as a parent, am I putting on a belief onto my kid, which is pressure, and it's exhausting, and it's demeaning, and it's not freeing, and they live with this scenario over top of them all the time? And maybe I just said it lightly, or you know, like, I mean, for my daughters, I have 3 daughters. Am I telling them you're going to be a helpmeet to your husband? Now, I'm not denying the fact of you can be a helpmeet to your husband, but is your sole purpose and value that you bring to the table as a wife that you need to help meet any of his desires and needs? Because then where's the helpmeet for you? Mm-hmm. You know, where's you meeting the desires and needs that you have as a woman? You know, I do not feel that my daughters are the purpose of helping some man meet what he wants to do. And if that was the total thing, then I would say, make sure your husband's not going to be working at McDonald's. Make sure he's not going to be doing this. You know, like, if you're going to help a man meet what he's to do in life, then find a great man. And I don't know a lot of great men out there. Mm-hmm. I apologize, men. I'm just calling it out. We should be, if the whole thing is for our wives to really help excel us in business and effort and politics and inventions and all of these things, why aren't we doing more?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I hit the jackpot in the husband department very unintentionally. You know, like, I had placed all these expectations on him and went through years of marriage, and then realized once I took those off of him that I allowed him the space to be who he was created to be. And he's just the most amazing person, you know? Even yesterday, I was telling him about a need that I needed met, and he goes, well, I'll probably get you this one because it's the better one, and I always like to get you the best. And I thought about it, because, you know, I'm not high maintenance. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't need the best of anything. But to him, that's his desire, is to let me get her something that's better than what I have, because I value her and what she does, and I know she's going to appreciate it. And I know not all men are like that. And my husband's not from the South, so I definitely have that quality on my side, to where he just thinks a little differently than most of the men here in the Bible Belt of America. But it's really all pretty much passed down. Like, it's just a trickle effect that's gone on for generations and generations and generations that we just accepted.
Well, and I'm not talking about good men. I think there's good men. I'm just talking about greatness, the Einsteins. You know, why is not everybody a business owner, a millionaire, Einsteins, you know, doing political things, doing, you know, instrumental things in their community? That's what I'm just talking from the effort of, you know, community thought and benefit and stuff like that. Not necessarily like a good guy, you know, morals, values, love, character, and stuff like that. But the thing is, like you even said you diminished down the thoughts of what your husband has to be or should be or stuff like that. Should we be diminishing down kind of some of the thoughts on what beliefs our kids are to have?
For sure. I think so. Definitely. I just think we have to value their free will, and sometimes we're so busy trying to control their free will that we don't value what they're bringing to the table.
Well, I know, you know, Sam said the other day, he said one of his teachers, he goes to a Christian school, And he said, his teacher said, if you go to church, raise your hand. And he said, I was so happy not to raise my hand. And I thought, well, that's strange, It's like, because we used to go to church all the time, and for about the last year or so, he hasn't gone. And it's not that we don't talk about God or anything like that. We talk about God all the time. I mean, I've talked to Eliza about hell and different things and thoughts, and my kids are not ignorant of spiritual things, and they have created their own beliefs. But more so, I don't sit down and say, okay, let's read the Bible and then try to teach a belief system in them of what they should believe. I ask them these dumb questions like, so what do you believe about hell? And my thing is my kid smart enough, even if he thinks like a Republican, or even if he thinks like an independent, or even if he thinks like a socialist, or even if he thinks like a Democrat, is he smart enough to say, I want to think like a socialist, and here's my reasons why? And me say, good job.
Of course.
If I'm applauding my kid for all of the things that he does and believes and wants and hopes, or should I be telling him he's stupid and he shouldn't be those things? If I tell him he's stupid, I mean, if he sits there and has a reason of why he's doing the things that he's doing, even if they're not my exact reasons why I would do it or not do it, did not God create his mind? Mm-hmm. Did not God speak to him? Is there not knowledge? I think that's the problem with the acceptance of the world and these beliefs and all of these different things. And my biggest hurdle in this is that people find peace in their families. I want the staunch believer that gay people are wrong to soften their heart to their gay kids. I want the staunch believer of Democrat or Republican or whatever to open up the mind to their kid who believes differently than them politically. I want the one who says, hey, I want to be an artist, and the parent's a professor at a university, says you have to go to school or you're, I'm just saying, I want people to accept their kids and their kids' beliefs, and because I know that will bleed over into their neighbor, into the stranger. And as a parent, why do we put this demand on ourselves and on the kids? Is there a different way to teach and get these points across and value each other?
Definitely, I think so. And I think a lot of times the beliefs are probably based out of fear. If you can't find love in it, then do you really want to pass it on to your kids?
Yeah, but most people would say, well, I'm going to tell my kid about XYZ religion because then they'll go to heaven, and that's love. Mm-hmm. I can even see where parents want to do and say the things that they want to do and say. But shouldn't we allow our kids to speak in our lives instead of us always speaking into their life?
For sure. Yep.
So when's the last time you've let a kid speak into your life?
I mean, this morning.
So you can't say for sure.
This morning. Okay. No, but for sure. I mean, I do with my kids. I try to have very open dialogue with my children so that I know what they're thinking or where they're at in their thought process. And not just that, but I want them to have the security and the confidence to be able to come to me with whatever they're thinking about or going through or dealing with. And I deal with it weekly, especially with my daughter that's a teenager right now and getting all this input from school and everything. I mean, we have to have very open conversations regularly right now.
Well, like my daughter, so she is seemingly behind on school. She has a very aggressive teacher who gives a lot of homework and stuff like that. And she sees it as unfair because, the other kids don't come home with so much homework. And, I said, it's just temporary because it's the teacher you have. And she says, I don't care about school. I just want to be a stay-at-home mom. And I was like, oh, interesting. And I know from personality standpoints, there's going to be different views of, staying at home mom, and like where you were talking about that meme of what you need to do or what you shouldn't have to do to equal mom. but like for me, my conversation with my wife was then at that point, if we know she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, you need to talk to her more about the things that you go through as a stay-at-home mom. You know, your fridge is not working. What do you do? Why is it not working? You know, food expires. Throw this away. Why are you throwing the food away? You know, why are you taking out the trash every day or every day? You know, why do you use antibacterial stuff in your house? You know, why do you not use antibacterial stuff in yourselves? You know, what does it look like to be a stay-at-home mom? What will the conversations have to be for you and your husband to say, be a stay-at-home mom? You know, how many women who want to be stay-at-home moms are working just because the finances and the demand that they can't do it. So they have to go to work, you know. Well, yes, you want to be a stay-at-home mom, but if you pick a man and he doesn't have the income for you to be a stay-at-home mom, are you willing to work? You know, and if you are willing to work, what job would you do outside of that? You know, what education would you need? You know, different things like that. We have conversations all the time where, you know, if you want to date, the question is, why do you want to date? You know, I understand how the body works and little boys work, and, you know, I don't know how little girls work, but, you know, but my little girl, I mean, she definitely likes having a boyfriend, you know. She won't talk to me about it at all, you know, and even like she tells her mom, she's like, don't tell dad, you know, but, so, you know, for my son, my question is not take on this belief of don't date, take on this belief of doing this, or take on this belief of doing that. My reasoning is why do you want to do this? What do you want out of it? What effort are you willing to, what effort do you want her to make? You know, like I want to get behind and have him in his mind starting to create understanding of his reasoning. You know, why should you not speed? Well, if you've never been in an accident or seen an accident, you'd say, well, because of the law tells me not to, you know. But what is it when you see an accident? You're like, ooh, what is it if you've been in an accident? What if you've been in 2 accidents? What if you got hurt from an accident? All of these things can really transform your mind based on speeding alone. And so for me, I'm trying to get into my kids' minds to think about what they should be thinking about before they experience an accident.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And you're getting them to question why and teaching them that it's a safe place to be able to question things and process it.
So what do you do as a parent to encourage those thoughts?
Ask them what they believe. Ask them why they believe it too. And I share with them what I believe and why I believe certain things, or why I think things should be a certain way. And we just discuss it from there. I mean, I'm telling you, parenting is all about talking. You do so much dang talking all the time over the same stuff over and over and over, it feels like. But I feel like that's where the connection is the most, because their little brains are just trying to process all of this input that they have from school, from home, from church, from TV. They just need that place where they can go and know it's okay to have those conversations about whatever it is. I mean, if you keep having these conversations about dating or driving safely or spiritual beliefs, they're going to know that they can come to you with anything ever, and that you're going to be open and vulnerable with them about it.
There was a Facebook thing that goes around with all these questions about what's the wizard guy, Harry Potter. And so it's kind of like what house, I guess, do you fit into based off these questions? And it was like, you know, if you saw somebody stealing something, what would you do? And they would answer these answers, and I'm like, I would do none of those, you know. And then and then she's like, well, you got to pick one, you know. So it's kind of these forced answers to put you into these boxes of beliefs. And it was funny because I allowed my kids, and I told my kids, answer to your gut, to your core, even though you think we wouldn't like it. Because the questions were kind of off the wall. It was kind of like, would you punch a person? Or, if you saw this and you were defending, would you walk away? Would you do? And like some of it was a little bit physical, and I'm like, but so I had to sit there and say, answer it even though I'm asking you the question. And I was very surprised of the answers, because like one, I think and why it stands out is because I think my daughter said I'd punch him or something, and I was like, oh dang, and so I'm sitting here having this experience where I'm asking each one of my kids their belief on how they would handle a situation and saying, answer it openly and honestly. And I think it gave me an ability of saying, oh my gosh, I can't accept them saying or doing something that I myself would not do. Now, I'm probably the most open-minded in the family, take it. But still to even see how their mind process some of these questions. And I think I would be challenging to the parents today, why not go look at some of these tests and start testing your kids and seeing what the kids' response is? Why not? We had the question about hell. You were talking to one of your kids about hell. That's a strange subject to talk about, you would think, but you had that conversation. He brought it up. You brought it up. How?
He brought it up.
All right, so go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah. This morning we were driving to school, and he had brought it up, and I was like, well, what do you think hell is? And he said, I think it is somewhere you go that isn't heaven and that the devil lives. And I was like, okay, well, I don't believe that that's what hell is. Would you like to know what I think hell is? And so I'm telling my 9-year-old this whole thing, and my 7-year-old sitting in the back seat saying, Mom, stop saying hell. It's a bad word.
Right. And then where did they get that belief from?
I know. It was so funny. Every time I say it, he'd be like, stop, just stop, Mom. But so I was able to share with my 9-year-old what I thought hell was. And it was so cute, because he has autism. And so he's kind of like really literal. And he's like, oh, so this and this equals this and this, and like just completely analyzing it to death, which was hilarious. But we were able to have this conversation, and I could share myself with him and know where he was at in his thought process. And by the end of the conversation, I was like, man, I'm so glad that we can talk like this. Like, he's not scared to ask me about things that he's curious about. And, religious stuff is just one aspect of it. There's so many other layers, but, to know that he felt comfortable enough to.
Well, I guess if being vulnerable, let me ask you this question. So we can kind of decipher you having an open, honest relationship where you're communicating with him. Tell me anything. How many times as a person have you felt like, oh, they won't listen to me, they won't hear me, they won't value my?
Oh, many.
And I think, see, again, that's my point in this conversation. If you've experienced that many times, maybe from your husband, maybe from your boss, maybe from your parents, maybe, is that the feeling we want people to have?
Oh, no. And that's probably why I'm so intentional about trying to cultivate that with my kids. Is I just really want them to know that their voice matters, that they matter, and that they're here to make a difference just as much as any and every other person on the planet. It's just so necessary to be vulnerable and open with our kids. And I even take it a step further, and I'm super apologetic to my kids. I mess up all the time, especially with my husband on the road and me doing everything by myself. I don't stay cool, calm, and collected 100% of the time. I just don't. But I know how to go to them and ask for forgiveness, and man, they're so quick to give it. And I think it's because I present to them a human, and all of my flaws and all of my shortcomings, instead of it being like, I'm the rightest right. This is the way it goes. There's no in between. It's my way or the highway. It's like I tell them all the time, listen, we are a team, and if we don't all do our part, we're not going to succeed. So that we all know that we have a place.
Well, and exactly. I mean, if you're the rightest right, and I think sometimes that's what we're creating in houses is that we're the rightest right. And so then are we asking our kids to be voiceless?
Oh, no.
Are we asking our kids to be voiceless at school to your teacher, be voiceless to your friends, be voiceless at work, be voiceless to your spouse? I think about so many things that have happened, with abuse or sexual abuse or relationships or, a boy you're dating calls you fat or, something. And then you're like, you don't know how to talk to somebody about it. And, for you to be able to share that and then say, but that was wrong. Would somebody, if we're teaching them how to be voiceless, say a voice and say, is this right? And be willing to be vulnerable and say, this is what happened to me. Is this right? I'm not looking at it from a viewpoint of let our kids do anything. I want them to know not anything everything can happen to them, and they just have to take it either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we've really been learning that this school year. And what's a little confusing for me, and I don't know if it's just like an age development thing, is I feel like my kids feel like they don't have as much of a voice away from me as they do with me. Because we've encountered many issues at school where they'll say something to me and I'm like, okay, did you talk to your teacher about this? Like, did you make her aware of whatever they're dealing with? And every time they're like, oh no. And I'm like, no, listen, you go and you talk to your teacher. Like, that's the person that you need to go to if you're having a problem. So it is, for me, a little confusing how we work on this so much, yet in this other area, they don't feel that confidence and that security to be heard.
Well, and I thought it was great the other day we were talking, and you have a Muslim friend who's considering sending their kid to a Christian school because they're having so much drama at a public school. And that's exactly the thing I'm talking about. As a Muslim person, they have their beliefs, and they know if they put their kid into this school, that school's going to have their beliefs. And so what effect will that school have on her beliefs or the kid's beliefs or their future? And so that's what I'm saying. It's such a challenge to think. And if I'm being gut-wrenching honest, my kids go to private school because I want to guard them from some of the public school beliefs. And then now I'm sitting here saying, ooh, do I need to guard my kids from the Christian school beliefs? It's kind of, and so I'm right in the middle of this whole thing too. I mean, there's things that we do as parents that we try to instill one way and then we realize another, and where's the balance? Because it's one thing for me to say the school's bad for teaching this, or this school is good for teaching that, or this school's. But then here's the thing. What if it's when it's not an outside source teaching the kid, but now it's my kid saying the thing that I don't want or don't think?
Yeah. Like
for you talked about you don't, hell, your version of hell. Well, what if your kid's saying, oh, Mom, no, Mom, there's a hell, there's an absolute hell, they're burning, they're frying. And you're like, well, no. And he's like, yes. And you're like, no. Does that make the divide? That's one thing for me is as a parent, I don't want to have a divide politically thinking, financially thinking. I mean, how many times have spouses got married and the mother or father doesn't like the daughter or son, and why don't they like the daughter or son? Well, because he believes this or does that or has tattoos or smokes or, all of these different things. And now all of a sudden I've not only demeaned that guy or that person, I've also demeaned my child for accepting and loving and caring. Ouch.
For sure.
So, I mean, this is in every marriage. It's in every relationship. It's with every kid and spouse and parent, and it's everywhere. But are we recognizing the demand that we put on other people based on our beliefs so that we can say we're the rightest right, we're correct, or can we be challenged by other people? Can we be challenged by our own kids?
Definitely. I think that they're the ones that challenge us the best in a good way. Really make us check ourselves, and why we do what we do. And I just want to say, if hearing this, you're starting to feel shame for projecting your beliefs on other people, don't. Because at the core, most people are doing the best that they can. I mean, everyone, just about it, every healthy parent loves their kids tremendously and are trying their best to love them and train them in the way that they think is right. But I do think we need to question why we may project our beliefs and our thoughts on our kids and create that space for them to be able to question it and us to be able to have those conversations.
Well, I remember I was talking to a converted Catholic woman, and she got married young, she got divorced young, and her mother would always say, a good Catholic girl doesn't get divorced. And I was wowed by this conversation because she's like 45 years old, and this was a scar. This was very hurtful. Mm-hmm. I mean, one, she's going through the divorce itself, feeling rejected. Why couldn't I make my marriage work? Why did I see this? Why did I do this? Why did he do that? Why? And then here, she's getting rejected by her mom. The place that would be the safe place. Mm-hmm. The place that you should be vulnerable, accepted, loved, cared for. Okay, we'll pick up the pieces. We'll do all these things. And it's become a place of, you're really bad. Because you're Catholic, you shouldn't do that. And how often are we doing that? Not only to our kids, but to our spouse, people around us. You've never had any experiences like that? Go ahead, talk about it.
I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure I've projected stuff on my kids that I've had to definitely look at hard in the face and be like, why?
Well, what's also been projected on you that you've had to overcome?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Oh my gosh. You were a kid once.
I sure was. Yeah, and there was definitely a lot of projection on the way that things should be growing up. A lot of control, a lot of this is the way that it is. And we didn't do much questioning at all. There wasn't room for question or open dialogue outside of what was acceptable as far as beliefs go.
So you had to deconstruction from being somebody's child into being Ashleigh, your own self. I think that's the thing that I'm looking for, Can my kids be their own selves? And what would it look like? Or are they always trying to live to be the image of Benn? What does the image... Like, the image of Benn is good for me. Mm-hmm. But do I want my daughter to look like me?
Right. And they're not supposed to be Benn.
Right. That's why they have their own names.
Yeah, exactly. They're not supposed to be you. And I think that is very hard for some parents to swallow. Is that because I've heard people say, oh, your children are a reflection of you. Like if they act out or if they say certain things. And while I would agree with that maybe on some surface level, I don't totally agree with it because my children are a reflection of themselves. They have their own free will. They make choices that I would think, oh my gosh, it's not okay to punch your brother in the eye. You know what I mean? Or to stay up till midnight and then be a grumpy butt all day the next day to everybody. You know, they are a reflection of everything that's inside of them that they're trying to go through. And them coming into themselves is a lifelong process, just like it is for us. You know, I know more now, today, about who I am than I did, even 5 years ago.
Well, I said this thought the other day, you know, to my wife, and I said, you made me a husband. And I said, you made me a father. But the interesting thing is she won't make me a grandfather. My kids will make me a grandfather. She didn't make me a business person, you know. And that's what I'm trying to say is we do have direct effects of what we make other people. We basically made the life of our kids. But do we want to make the life that they're going to live for the rest of their life in condemnation, in sorrow, in separation? You know, is it acceptable that your kids don't call you or haven't called you for 5 years? Why is that an acceptable belief based off what you demand from your kids? And then you won't talk to them unless they change. Why can't you change? Why can't we change to accept what we've deemed the unacceptable?
I can't answer that, Ben.
I mean, is it worth it? Like, you have kids. Why'd you have kids? Did you have kids so that they would be yes kids to you? Did you have kids because you wanted to make them perfect little Ashleighs and Mikes? Did you have kids because you thought you were the rightest right on everything in life and you said, ooh, I want to have a kid so that I could download my computer software system into them and they be exactly the way they should be because I'm going to demand that they do everything that I want them to do? Or did you have kids because you were going to be excited about their successes, their desires, their hopes, their dreams? Why'd you have kids?
Because I wanted more people to do life with. Because they have always been inside of me and they are all I've ever wanted since I was little. It definitely wasn't to have them to do for me. It was to have them to love, to pour everything into.
Right, but then that's what I'm saying. So why do we change? Why do we go from, ooh, I want that kid so I can smell, so I can kiss them, so I can love them, so I can hold them, so I can make them safe, and then now we become the destruction. We have kids to protect them and care for them, and now we're the enemy because of what we're demanding our beliefs or they need to believe or how they need to act or what they need to do. Isn't that weird? It's like self-destruction or relationship. I don't even have a term for it. I don't even understand it. I just know that concept's there of I love being around, smelling my kids' hair and kissing them and laughing with them and eating with them and joking. I love all of that. But my question is it because I love myself more I make this demand?
Possibly. Or you value yourself more than you value your kids.
I can see where that comes from, but I can't say yes to that because what I'm really saying yes to is I value a thought more.
That's exactly what I was just
Not
thinking.
I love myself more, but I love the thought over my kid. So my question is do you if there's division between you and your kids, you and your husband, you in any relationship, is it because you value the thought of what they need to do or how they should live or your belief over the value of that human?
I would say yes. From personal experience, I would definitely say that's probably it.
You know, there's this Bible verse. We've talked about the Bible a lot tonight. And it says, "You will know my disciples by the love they have for one another." And I thought that was an interesting, because it does not say, "You will know my disciples by the beliefs that they demand on one another." It doesn't say, "You will know my disciples by the way they live their beliefs to one another." It does not say, "You will know my disciples by the actions or the way they do things or the way they demand things to be done by other people," or any of that. It says, "You will know my disciples by the love." Have we lost the focus of love for one another as parents, as spouses, in relationships? And how do we get back to that? We start valuing the person over what was created the divide. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. We're coming into political season. And I know, I was talking to Robbie the other day, and Robbie goes, "I can't tell anybody I'm a Republican because he's a black man with all of his black family, and they will all say, 'No, you have to be a Democrat.'" And he's like, I don't feel politically minded as a Democrat. He says, "I like Trump. I like those ideas. I like the Republican." He's like, "I'm more conservative. This is the way I want to vote." Can't say that. And I think what a shame that it is that we do that to our own kids. What is it a shame that we do it to our wives? I mean, not stirring up any trouble, but I think there's subjects that I have not said to Liz, and there's probably subjects that she hasn't said to me. If I'm being I'm going to lay it out there, I'm vulnerable. Her dad used to say things like, "You're valuable, you're important, what you have to say is important," stuff like that. And I'm like, "Well, but I'm the final say, so yeah, you can say something, but I'm the final." And it was a challenging thought to me, because the church would say, "Well, you're the head of your household." And I've used that on her. I'd be like, "Listen, woman, I'm the head of the household, and this is what this means." What I was talking about is something financial. I know, I'm terrible. So I'm saying, "No, we're going to spend XYZ money." And her dad would be like, "Man, you're valuable. You're important. What you have to say is important." And then here I am as her husband saying, "Nope, you're not important. You're not important. You're not. What you think is not important. What you say is not important. I won't even try it. I won't even accept it. Nope, it's mine." And I'm being vulnerable because I'm saying, I wonder how much I shut my wife down because I demanded my belief of what I thought about money or situation or something. How many times have I tried to talk over her? How many times have I said, "Well, this is the way it should be," And we've actually had to shift even the conversations, how we talk about things, because sometimes she'll come home and she'll just want to talk or share about, her experience with her friends or stuff like that. And I'd be like, "No, they need to do this." What did I just do? I just interjected my belief. And really what we're saying when we do that is, if I was in this situation, I would do this. But when can we lay that down and say, I hope that situation for her and the decision that she made works out the best for her? When can we give honest advice? Advice is so loaded because it's selfish. You were talking about your husband doing work in Orlando. Well, guess what? Immediately I'm sitting there saying, "You would not want to move. because I know if you move, it draws harder on our relationship to get our business stuff done, So it's like, man, you're such a dynamic threshold in this business that I need you here. But what would it look like if you came and you said, hey, so I don't want to interject what's important to me over what's important to you. If you're like, man, my husband, we're moving to Orlando, I should be like, high five, let's make it work. How are we going to do? All right, well, let's get Zoom.com, let's. And I think that's the thing is are we willing to help out other people achieve what they want to achieve? Or are we so selfish that it's like, no, don't do that. And I think that's the shift and the challenge today's conversation of how can you have your own beliefs? I think Ashleigh's valuable and she should stay here and work here. Versus Ashleigh's a bad person because now she's moving. Now I got to do something different. Versus how can we make it work for both people? Mm-hmm. How can parents make it work for them and their kids? I'll even say this, how can kids help their parents? If you're waiting on your parent to come and their hard-headedness, never yield, never are apologetic, never forgiving, never hopeful, never loving, never reaching out to you, you can take that step back and you can reach out to them. I know it's a stupid thing that you feel like as a kid you've got to reach out to your hard-headed parents, but you can do that. You can find common ground. You can find value. You can find importance. I understand, because now kids are also creating beliefs. So, if you're in a conservative household, you're gay, you move out, and you're like, I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to hide my gayness. I'm not going to do this. True. But you might just not be as bold as you are in your own community, town, stuff like that. And I'm not trying to say be of shame or change, but where can more relationships meet in the middle? Husband and wife, where can you meet in the middle where it's not my belief or your belief, it's our belief? Mm-hmm. Where can you do that with your kids? Where can you do that with your parents? Let's start yielding. And I think sometimes what we do is we create this, it has to be my belief, because we're so deep inside looking for value.
Mm-hmm. And wanting to be heard.
And I believe so much in this that I'm willing to give up everything for it. I think that should be pretty awe-inspiring if our kid is willing to give up our relationship with a parent because of what they believe. Shouldn't we as a parent be willing to give up what we believe for our kid?
Absolutely.
So I'm challenging you today, your beliefs, the division that you've had with your kids or you've had with your parents or you've had with your spouse, challenge you today. Take another side. Talk to somebody in that category. If you're a Republican, go talk to a Democratic friend and say, why are you a Democrat? How long have you been a Democrat? What are the reasons you're a Democrat? Talk to 3 or 4 or 5, 6 different people. Let's get funky and get 20, 25. We're not asking you to change your beliefs, but at least hear the other beliefs. If it's too edgy for you to talk to your family member, I think you should ask yourself why. Why is it that I don't value love, blood, family more than I value a belief? Last words?
I think you about covered it, Ben.
Until next time.